Good evening. Welcome to Northbeat. I'm Megan Roberts. Northern Airlines are taking aim at the federal government today. The presidents of Air North and Canadian North testified at a standing committee on transportation. As the CBC's Nick Murray reports, they say fees and regulations are making it more expensive for passengers to fly.
Canadian North CEO Shelley DeCaria says things like restrictions on how many hours a pilot can fly and the rules around landing in bad weather have put a strain on her airline's operations.
We operate in a very unique environment, and the regulatory policies that we have in place do not contribute to the success that we have.
Testifying in Ottawa this morning, she told the committee Canadian North has an average of 175 weather cancellations a month. Tack on things like NAV Canada fees and landing fees, and the airlines say it makes it expensive to fly in Canada.
Specifically, air navigation costs, landing fees and charges, just about every other fee and cost directly imposed by the government, we do have to pass on to the traveling public, which makes it more difficult and may ultimately destroy travel demand by making it unaffordable.
And while navigation and landing fees are not mandated by the federal government, airports do pay federal tax. Airline leaders say they hope this committee's work will help to better inform the public about the realities of what it costs to fly.
Air travel is very price elastic, and the higher the cost, the less people are going to travel. And I think that I think part of this study was driven by the perception that domestic airfares were too high.
This was the first of 6 meetings the committee will have looking into the issue. The next one is scheduled for next week. Nick Murray, CBC News, Iqaluit.
Ottawa says it will no longer fund rebates for fossil fuel heating systems. It's a countrywide change that affects nearly all of the Northwest Territories' heating rebates. As the CBC's Leanie Lambering tells us, the NWT government is pushing back.
Furnaces, boilers, hot water systems, it didn't matter if it used propane, oil, or gas. If it met strict criteria for efficiency, in the NWT, you were able to get a rebate for it, but not anymore.
It's a little bit counterproductive to pull that out, because we may now see that if that incentive is not there and people need to replace a furnace or a boiler, they'll simply go to what's cheapest and not really care how efficient it is.
The NWT government is trying to get an exemption.
There aren't a lot of other good substitutes for home heating, for example. And going from our perspective, going from a traditional sort of oil boiler or furnace that a lot of people have in the north, going to high efficiency propane is better than staying with the oil. And so we have requested that exemption. We don't know what the outcome of that is going to be, but we're hopeful.
NWT residents can still get rebates for biomass heating. Hike says they can't be the only source of heat in a home for insurance purposes. Sexton says heat pumps are an option too, but studies are underway to see how they perform in extreme cold. NWT Infrastructure Minister Caroline Wozniak says Ottawa isn't thinking about the North's unique needs. She says fossil fuel heating will be central in the NWT for the foreseeable future. Leanie Lambering, CBC News, Yellowknife.
The NWT Department of Infrastructure has applied to the Mackenzie Valley Land and Water Board to dredge the Liard River. It wants to create a clear path for the ferry to Fort Simpson. The territory is worried that low water levels could make the short voyage unsafe. Carla Ulrich has the story.
The territory is hoping to remove sediment and obstructions from the ferry's normal path through the river to prevent it from getting damaged or running ashore during operations. The ferry is located on Highway 1 near the village of Fort Simpson. For residents, it's a lifeline, and losing it could cause chaos in the small community.
It's very important. It's really our only connection. The air flights out of here are quite expensive, so people tend not to use that, except for when there's maybe medical trips involved. But yeah, everything that we get in Fort Simpson comes by way of the ferry, so it's sort of critical for us.
Cleet-Lê-Coin First Nations Chief Keely Antoine is also concerned about the ongoing low water levels and how they will affect ferry operations and the potential impacts on the community. Antoine says this is the lowest he's ever seen the water, and it's already affecting the ferry route.
Right when the ferry started, They went right to the low water route, which is a different route. They have a little deeper channel, so they got to go up the river. Takes a little bit longer, probably more fuel, more cost, and that's just to avoid some of the big rocks and maybe some sandbar type areas that might be, immediately in the path.
The territory is hoping to remove 8,000 cubic meters of material over 20 days. The work is expected to occur between August 15th and September 18th. Carla Ulrich, CBC News, Fort Smith.
The NWT's Dutcho Bridge is still in need of repair nearly a year after one of its cables broke. The bridge's cables are attached to towers that bear the load of the bridge. Now, the GNWT is deciding who will fix it. The repairs were originally set for this summer. They've now been pushed to the fall. 2 companies are in the running to do the work, and the territorial government is currently reviewing their submissions. Supplies are expected to arrive in October. Construction will begin shortly after. It's the first new school to open in Whitehorse in more than 20 years. And last night, future students and their families got a chance to take a tour and ask questions. Maria Tobin takes us there.
Whistlebend Elementary is nearly ready to open its doors. It's built for 425 students, and it's already nearly half full. Around 200 are registered for the next school year. Education Minister Jeannie McLean says the building is designed for growth.
This certainly is going to take a lot of pressure off the north end, and I think that having this modern learning space. I mean, as you go through, you can get a sense of how the space is a little bit different than other schools.
The new school features 2 gymnasiums, sensory rooms, and touchless sinks. It has multiple language rooms scattered throughout the building where students will learn Southern Tushone.
We consulted with both local First Nations, and they asked that we teach Southern Tushone. There is the chance in the future, we keep talking about having linguistics teachers, but we're not quite at that point yet.
Whistlebend Elementary will host students from kindergarten to grade 7 from the Whistlebend neighborhood and parts of Takini. But students that are entering grade 6 and above will finish their studies at their current schools. The first bell will ring in August. Maria Tobin, CBC News, Whitehorse.
One Nunavut MLA representing part of the Kitikmeot region says many of the power plants in his district need to be upgraded or replaced. Joseph Kukiak raised the issue during question period this week. He says QEC will begin talks with the Kitikmeot Corporation to build a new power plant in Kugluktuk, and he wonders when other communities in the region will have that opportunity.
Mr. Speaker, can the Minister clearly explain why the Kugluk Energy Corporation has not also been directed to enter into negotiations with the Kitikmeot Corporation for the design and construction of a new power plants for Joe Haven, Cambridge Bay, and Cougarou?
John Main is the minister responsible for the Kugluk Energy Corporation. He says they're working on how to get plants in those communities. The chair of the Aurora College Board of Governors says it might not be the right time for a polytechnic university in the Northwest Territories. Joe Hanley says the board is committed to a polytechnic, but at the same time, they need to keep up the quality of Aurora's programs. He says there's a lack of certainty when it comes to funding, and students don't want to enter programs that might get cut. He says that's a lot to manage on top of the transformation to a new polytechnic university.
We certainly have challenges in front of us right now. Just to keep the ongoing regular programs funded and keep students in their seats and so on. Would there be a better time? Quite frankly, I'd say it could have been done better 2 years ago when it was started, or two governments ago. If there had been more pre-planning done and a careful thought of what we're doing here. Because to be struggling to keep our programs together and at the same time wanting to expand to be a polytechnic, it's a full plate.
That was Joe Hanley, chair of the Aurora College Board of Governors. The college's transition into a university was supposed to be completed by May 2025. Hanley says that won't meet that timeline. They won't meet that timeline due to the funding. Supporters of midwifery birthing services in the NWT are protesting proposed cuts to the program in Yellowknife. The territorial government is looking to cut $900,000 in its latest budget.
Stop the cuts, midwifery now! Stop the cuts, midwifery now! Stop the cuts, midwifery now!
Dozens of people gathered in front of the NWT legislature this afternoon to show the government how they feel.
It's proven to be invaluable service time and time again, and I think it's a little bit ridiculous that we're proposing this $900,000 budget cut for such an invaluable service.
So I've been very open with my journey. My partner and I have been undergoing in vitro fertilization in southern Canada due to multiple diagnoses and multiple years of trying to get pregnant. And the current stance of the GNWT is still falling pregnant is not medically necessary, and they provide no supports towards getting pregnant, and now are wanting to cut our supports for when you are pregnant.
The NWT government says cutting funding for the Yellowknife program allows them to support smaller communities. But protesters say the Yellowknife program provides training and grows the midwifery in the NWT for smaller communities. MLAs will vote on the budget before the spring session ends on June 13th. There's updated guidelines for breast screening in Canada. A national task force is not recommending mammograms for women under 50 who are of average risk. That differs from the recent advice from the Canadian Cancer Society that says testing should begin at 40. As Tashana Reid reports, it sparked a fierce debate in the medical community and beyond.
Strong words from Canada's health minister about new draft recommendations for breast cancer screening.
I'm concerned and I'm disappointed.
Adding, he's asking for an additional review by the chief medical health officers from across the country.
The guidelines that have been released by the task force simply stated don't conform with the conversations that I've had with experts across the country.
The Canadian Task Force on Preventative Healthcare says after a thorough review of research and data, they don't see the benefit in lowering breast cancer screening to women under 50.
We recommended against systematic screening because the harms are big and the benefits are small.
Some of those harms, they say, are unnecessary tests or biopsies and anxiety for individuals who may not have cancer in the end, but added that for patients who do want a mammogram, they should be allowed.
So if they choose to be screened, they should not be denied access. That should be provided to them by the provincial screening programs.
Currently, it's a patchwork system across the country. Some provinces and territories have moved to offer screening earlier. In Yukon, British Columbia, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, PEI, and Newfoundland, women have access at 40, and Ontario will start this fall, while Alberta and Northwest Territories start screening at 45. The rest of the country has stayed at 50.
It makes me angry for all Canadians. Where we live in this country shouldn't dictate our access to the standard of care of medicine.
2 years ago, Fernanda Dominguez Perticaris pushed for a mammogram at age 49, despite her doctor saying it wasn't necessary. 1 month later, she was diagnosed with stage 2 breast cancer. She had surgery and multiple rounds of chemo and radiation.
If this had been caught even earlier, had I had a mammogram a year earlier or 2 years earlier, who's to say that I would have needed chemo at that point?
The draft guidelines will now be up for public consultation for 60 days and possibly longer if needed. Tashana Reid, CBC News, Toronto.
Some members of Parliament testified before the House of Commons Procedure and House Affairs Committee. It's part of a review of Parliament's workplace harassment and violence prevention policy. The committee heard detailed accounts of politicians being subjected to abuse. Rafi Boudjikanian has more.
It's just not the venue that I want to be in anymore.
When Pam Dumoff announced she was not running for office again earlier this month, citing harassment, she says some of the responses she got proved her point.
For example, and again I'm quoting, "Resign now, you stupid effing cow. Don't wait. Run and hide, libtard effing bitch. Good riddance, C-word."
She was not the only one who testified before this committee looking into harassment of MPs and staff on Parliament Hill.
Somebody once said to me, I want to you gently with a chainsaw. Imagine the violence, the thought of it even.
In fact, in the last 5 years, the people in charge of protecting MPs say incidents of harassment from the public have increased 800%. Not just online abuse. A man was charged with arson for setting fire to a Mississauga, Ontario Liberal MP's office 2 years ago.
Christia!
And then there was this incident of a man following the finance minister and her staff at an appearance in Grande Prairie, Alberta.
What the you doing in Alberta?
To give you an example on threat behaviors towards towards the MPs, in 2019 there was approximately 8 files we opened up, and in 2023 there was 530.
The Liberal MPs both said they've noticed upticks in the hate they are subjected to whenever some Conservatives take to social media to accuse them of corruption, something Conservatives at committee pushed back on.
I have been on the receiving end of what you have described, but what your members have done. So what we can't get into when we're talking about solutions is pretending that one party is above scrutiny. You wouldn't suggest that the Prime Minister is directly responsible for the harassment I've received, would you?
I've been trying to stay above the fray because I'm not getting into whether the opposition leader or the Prime Minister. I mean, if you want to go there, we can.
The Liberals are suggesting an online code of conduct for MPs. The Conservatives, amendments to the criminal code to restrict bail for serial harassers. Neither side is fully sold on the other's proposal, though while parties acknowledge the problem, they don't seem to be seeing eye to eye on a solution, at least not yet. Rafi Bujikani, CBC News, Ottawa.
Makimuksak palilaw kapta awla yina lakpo kugyang mulo amalo kokbiyo yamon kinga diwaling mulo pangolo asyang miu muna toy muina daile takpa makimuksak palilaw sumo mutay mabuat taling ni pilariyo lak sunga inyuin amichwalu walang muta.
When we see Team Canada on the world stage, we're witnessing pure greatness. What we don't see is their struggle. We don't see Maggie McNeil navigating her anxiety, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander getting cut from his high school team, or Ellie Black hearing she's just too old to compete. What we don't see makes us who we are. We're all bravely facing the odds in our lives, and our bravery is our victory.
This is the CFBC's largest detachment, home to elite units, federal and municipal scope. Congratulations on making the cut.
Have you spoken with your father?
I'm coming for you and everyone like you.
I would rather be Baroque than Blue. There's lots of reasons to not be a cop. And a Surrey girl should know all of them.
Maybe you should reconsider the uniform and everything that it represents.
I'd rather fight from inside it to make a change.
Everyone listen up.
Bursting with flavor.
All these guys 21?
Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
Owning an NHL team.
Penguins had us review your offer, and it looks good.
Wow. Get me on the phone with Cops Coliseum. Tell them I want to buy it.
Like many other northern communities, Dawson City is facing threats from floods and wildfires. So residents got together last night to prepare for an emergency before one happens. Over 30 people spent an hour at the town's fire hall packing emergency kits. Each kit was filled with emergency contact information, a handheld FM radio, and batteries. It's all in response to last year's flooding in the Klondike Valley. Mike Massery is the town's fire chief. He says the goal was to fill 1,000 kits, and they hit that mark with the help of volunteers.
Well, you know what? It's a big, finally we're packaging, because it just seemed to take forever to get the pieces. But to see everybody out in, like, I was hoping we'd have enough people. There's more people on the first table than I was hoping for. And well, you got, like I said, you got people from the hospital, you got people from Klondike, you got people from across the river, you got people from all over the place, which is great. Everybody wants, and everybody, you just protect yourself, right?
Massery says crews will go door to door this weekend to hand the kits out to residents. As Canada aims to build more homes to help tackle the housing crisis, there's a new push to use a material called mass timber. Some advocates say it's a more eco-friendly option that's cheaper and faster to use than concrete or steel. Paula Duhacek has more.
This Edmonton factory is making glue laminated timber, or glue-lam, a type of mass timber that can replace beams made of steel.
So, how's business these days?
Well, business is booming.
So much so, the company is building a new 155,000 square foot factory.
We are filling capacity slots about 10 months out from today. So yes, the phone's ringing off the hook.
A growing interest, but still relatively rare. An RBC report says mass timber accounts for just about 1% of North American building materials, though building codes are changing to allow more of it. Some provinces will allow up to 18 stories, the height of this student residence at the University of British Columbia. Developers like mass timber because it comes together quickly.
For example, our building on 5 here at Ontario and 5th in Vancouver was erected in 12 days.
Proponents say it's also more eco-friendly than concrete and steel.
Wood is the lowest carbon building material available. We're not saying we're eliminating concrete. We're not saying we eliminate steel. We need those things to work in concert with wood to create these safe, affordable, low carbon, net zero buildings.
Still, uptake of mass timber has been uneven across the country, and some builders are reluctant to switch. Plus, some researchers say if we want to protect the environment, the last thing we should do is cut down more trees.
The most valuable thing we can do with forests is to leave them standing and growing.
Environmental debates aside, there are also practical considerations. The pull of doing things the way they've always been done versus a new approach that promises to build homes faster. Paula Duhacek, CBC News, Edmonton.
In Alberta, a professional carpentry course is teaching some high school students more than just the tools of the trade. They're also learning how to use those skills to carve out their future. Take a look.
The course that we're doing is a dual credit carpentry course. Because of my journeyman ticket and my bachelor's in education, the government of Alberta allows for us to have a dual credit option. So they're getting 30 level credits in a grade 12 credit, and they're working through their first year journeyman carpentry.
The kids really enjoy hands-on work, and that's one of the ways that the carpentry definitely is filling a need.
You go in, give it a tiny little bit of a wobble once you're through. I like this program, and what's special is its small class size is number 1, so the kids get more one-on-one. The next thing is it's 100% First Nations. So our school is 100% First Nations, and we're trying to get them hands-on learning for something practical.
When I'm older, I plan on building my own house. Not buying one, I plan on building one.
Casey, she kind of was like, I don't really know what I'm doing with school. I don't really know what I want to do with school. Then we got her working. And it's like, then I saw that go into all of a sudden she's doing well in math. She's like getting on a roll in math and working on that and working hard in it. But that passion, she came to me the one day and she was like, you know what, just not feeling math. And I was like, but wait a minute, you're not feeling it right now. But what do we do in shop? She's like, math. And I said, yeah, math is relevant. Look at all the other parts of school. Science is relevant, math is relevant, English language arts when you need to write a business proposal is relevant. Every little piece ties back in.
School's actually making more sense to me rather than how it was a couple years ago. I was so naive and just bad. Yeah, I just had a bad attitude.
All of the tools that you guys see, everything that we have here was provided by a donation. It got us to where we needed to be. If we wouldn't have had that donation, we wouldn't have been able to actually have this program. To me, it's setting them up for success later.
My dream is being a carpenter. Basically open up my own business and a skateboarding business.
I think anything we can do to help our First Nations kids get ahead in the world is what we need to do. And by allowing them to graduate here with almost the first year of carpentry apprenticeship done, I think that's incredibly valuable. And I want to see our kids go out and be able to, you know, like, let's have Casey's Skate Shop and all of our kids. Let's have them, you know, be amazing builders and, you know, come back to the reserve and help others, help build houses on the reserve. Just be stand-up kids in their communities.
It just changed the whole perspective about the school, I guess.
Yeah, and I'm setting an example for like my nieces and nephews. So yeah, I feel like I can show them this stuff when they're older.
I see our program as not just me. It's bigger picture. We need to take industry, bring industry in at a high school level, have them work one-on-one with us, because that's what gets kids excited. That's what gets us to say, hey, wait a minute, there is something beyond high school. There's something than me just graduating. What does graduating look like for me? Where is that taking me?
Nunavut Sinukshuk drum dancers are busy preparing to showcase Inuit culture at a festival with 1,400 performers from around the world. It's called Harbor Voices, and it happens in St. John's, Newfoundland next month. The group has been rehearsing during every lunch break, and despite hearing the songs over and over again, the director says they never get old.
But when you feel everyone really gelling together, sometimes that really makes my hair stand up. So there are certain times, it could be a song that I've heard 100 times, and then something happens, I don't know, or it was particularly beautiful, or someone sang it.
Piercy Lewis says their set list will be a blend of traditional and modern sounds. There will be drum dancing, throat singing, some string instruments, and perhaps a lyric or two from Nunavut icons like Charlie Adams. Sounds like an incredible show. I really hope we get to see some videos and photos when it happens. And that is Northbeat for tonight. For news anytime, go to cbc.ca/north. Thank you for watching. I'm Megan Roberts. Have a good night.
You're gonna scare me.
Look out! Ain't nobody gonna stop me. We have a new world record.
Oh my God. We're a team. We fight the best we can.
Unbelievable!
Thank
you for choosing Plan B.
Tell me what I need to do to save my family.
Please enter your date of travel.
I can't do this anymore.
If you could go back, change things, would you do it?